What's up, everyone? We're here for post-game Locked On Bucks after Game 3, which, if you're a Bucks fan, as far as high-stress situations in a playoff game goes, this is probably the perfect scenario. The Bucks get back on track, and they needed to, and I describe this as a reassuring playoff win for the Bucks. They do it easily. They've got a 2-1 lead in the series, but we've got plenty to talk about. The defense tonight was unbelievable. We'll talk about some players stepping up on offense, and we will get to Khris Middleton, and we will get to Luca Vildoza for our Argentinian friends. Don't you worry about that. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday and on the weekends as we're recording now during the playoffs, post-game, and also fun work over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And we do thank you for listening to Locked On Bucks, making it your first listen of every day or your first watch of every day if you're on YouTube as well. We really appreciate that, particularly when the Bucks have a very, very comfortable playoff win. And the reason why I said it was reassuring is because when you have an injury to a player like Khris Middleton and the team's been playing really poorly, let's be honest, I wasn't sure. I thought that there was a chance, Frank, that this would be the type of situation where not only the poor play, but the loss of a star player maybe jolts something in this team and refocuses them, and they come out and play on a different level. We kind of saw that last year with Giannis when he went out in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they played really well. And we absolutely saw this. And the defense, no doubt about it, is the story of this game. The way they were able to defend DeMar DeRozan. And really, it was a team effort. Drew Holiday, Mark Breen described him as maniacal, but I thought the entire team was maniacal the way they defended tonight. We've seen it in periods from this Bucks team, Frank, but tonight to do it for the 3 quarters that it was required with no let up, it was fun to watch and reassuring if you're a Bucks fan.
Yeah, I think the last 2 games of the season series, the regular season series, we really harped on just how enormous the Bucks seemed to be compared to the Bulls, and how difficult it just seemed for the Bulls to do anything inside, and how they really just, were relying on jump shots. And obviously, the Bulls as a team really struggled. They don't shoot many threes, and they really struggled from the 3-point line in the kind of latter stages of the season. Overall, still a pretty good mark, one of the better 3-point percentages on the overall season, but not a team full of like gunners, right? They have a few guys, obviously Levine is always a threat to pull up from 3. Kobe White can get going from 3. Vuce obviously can stretch the floor as a spot up big man, but they have a lot of guys, including obviously DeRozan, who, they don't want to look for the 3-point shot. And tonight it really did feel like those last 2 regular season games, which were also blowouts, including one of them in Chicago without Khris Middleton. And so, we've seen this happen before, right? We've seen the I don't know if you want to call it the blueprint, but we've seen the Bucks go into Chicago this season without Khris Middleton and really lay the wood to the Bulls. But again, I think so much of it, as you alluded to, you just don't know how teams are going to react psychologically. And I thought it was interesting. Jeff Van Gundy, at the start of the game, was referencing how he thought actually the pressure was on Chicago, and sort of the maybe the tougher spot was Chicago coming off the win and feeling like, okay, now what, right? Oh, we won that road game. We did what we wanted to do in the first 2. Oh shit, now we gotta go win a home game. And the Bucks are missing an all-star, and so this is served right up to us, right? I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better Wednesday night, short of like a Giannis injury. You couldn't have really asked for much more from Wednesday night's game from a Bulls perspective. Not only winning, Khris Middleton out for the series, Bobby Portis, having his eye almost gouged out. And that was one of my concerns too. I was like, because I thought immediately, like as soon as they said MCL sprain, MCL sprains are always like at least 2 weeks, right? And then you thought, well, geez, I hope Bobby's at least back. And I thought maybe the place to start is they got off to a great start. And they did it with a lineup, which I was not expecting. I thought they'd probably put Grayson Allen into the starting 5, given that Grayson Allen obviously started most of the season, and it felt like kind of a natural thing. So basically it would have been like putting Wes Matthews in for Khris Middleton compared to what they did for most of the season. But instead, they go with this jumbo lineup. Bobby Portis with the glasses on comes out firing. We know he likes to play well in Chicago, the city that he started his NBA career in. And I thought he really set the tone. Giannis was very unselfish. I thought it was a great sign that Giannis wasn't pressing. Like you kind of look at him like, oh, Giannis is going to have to really, be Superman to win this series, or do even more with Khris Middleton out. And he was really patient. They didn't need a huge game from him. He passed 9 assists tonight. He got other guys going, and most importantly, they got a really good effort top to bottom from the 8 guys that played tonight. And obviously, Portis really started it. Grayson Allen was a huge part of really extending that lead later in the. I think he started late in the first quarters, maybe when he hit his first shots, but really in the second quarter, he ends up hitting 3 threes. And that was obviously a huge theme of this game. He ends up the leading scorer for the Bucks, which, not something I think we would have predicted pregame. So, again, is Bobby Portis starting in Khris Middleton's absence the recipe moving forward against the Bulls? And if you can beat the Bulls, is that the recipe against, the Boston Celtics or potentially the Brooklyn Nets? I don't know about that, but certainly tonight it was, came out looking like a great option. And even with, I was amazed because I look at this, I'm just like, man, they've got like no passing. That's basically Drew and Giannis are the only like guys that can really make a play in that starting group. But the size was just overwhelming for the Bulls. They hit a couple shots early, but for the most part, never got really on track shooting the ball. And the defense was just suffocating. And again, that felt like Bucks basketball, dominating the glass, no second chances, no paint points, and no fouling either, which, again, when you talk about the recipe for how this team wins games, they may give up a lot of threes. Tonight they did not, but control the paint, control the glass, don't give up free throws. It's been obviously a recipe that worked last year during the playoffs, and hopefully it's a recipe we start to see work night in and night out again now from here on out.
10 free throws for the Bulls. So to your point, really being able to limit Chicago in that aspect of the game. And I think Breen or Van Gaal, one of those guys, pointed to it as well. It wasn't anything to do with the officiating. They just literally were not getting to spots where they were going to draw contact, to where that physicality was going to be there. And I do think that the answer, and I wouldn't have picked Bobby Portis either. I wouldn't have picked Grayson Allen because I just think that Bud would have gone with size and someone that he trusts a little more defensively. So I thought it was probably going to be Pat Connaughton, to be honest. I thought he might have been the guy that slipped into the starting lineup. But when you watch the game, and of course, everything goes right tonight, so it's easy to say that it was perfect. But Bobby Portis does make sense because, as you pointed to, the Bulls aren't exactly willing shooters. And we even saw tonight, they're down big. They need to hit shots. And there was a number of times where they had wide open threes. They'll make an extra pass. They're not a team that is eager to shoot those threes. So I think the Bucks were able to close everything down defensively. And they had 9 points on the board through up until the 4:23 mark of the first quarter. So, and they were all threes. And a couple of them were those wide open Vooch threes. And it's like, okay, well, we know the Bucks are going to let him shoot those above the break ones. But then the first two came on DeRozan. And it was when Grayson was on the floor and DeRozan just went straight at him. And it was like, out of all the guys that are on the floor, and Grayson Allen was fantastic tonight, so this isn't a knock on him, but it was the one time really almost for the whole night where DeRozan was like, oh, okay, he's a guy that I can do whatever I want to. He got the bucket. So that's why I think it made sense that Grayson wasn't out there with the starters. I thought it was interesting that the rotation, because this was going to be the other thing that we needed to look at. So Giannis went out at around the 6-minute mark of the first quarter, and then he came back in a couple minutes later, and Portis and Lopez went off, and they went to Giannis at the 5, because when you start all three guys, it's just interesting to see how they're going to mix and match that. But I thought that was noteworthy, and we've seen the Bucks have some success already in this series with Giannis at the 5. And if not, you're just going to try and overwhelm them with size.
Yeah, I think that's the other piece of it, which surprised me a little bit, because you have a 3-man big rotation, and when you start all 3 bigs that you want to rotate through the 4 or 5 spots, then obviously it becomes a little harder. But the flip side is it's the playoffs. You don't want to be running a long rotation, especially with, your number 2/3, whatever you want to put Khris Middleton at in terms of his pecking order. You obviously are going to shorten the rotation. You're going to lean on Giannis and Drew more. You're not going to see minutes where both those guys are sitting unless it's garbage time, as we saw tonight. So it was a little interesting, but then it ended up being not not that difficult actually, because, basically you just knew that those guys were going to stretch out, and, Giannis typically rests kind of midway through the first quarter anyway. So, I thought they were short shifting Giannis pretty well in the first half. I don't know how many minutes he played in the first half, but Bud was not going for extended, 5-6 minute absences from Giannis. He was, seeing pretty short shifts on the bench, and they could have extended him obviously a lot more. He ends up playing only 29 minutes, and in the second half, obviously they were a little bit looser with letting him sit down. I think when he got his third foul, they let him sit down and kind of rest a little bit. But and I think the important thing too was, you look at obviously Grayson Allen. You love seeing those early threes go down, but also the aggression going to the basket.
Yeah.
And we talked about this late in the regular season. The third game between these teams in the regular season, he didn't hit a 3-pointer, but in that blowout win, I think he hit like 5 shots, and they were all like kind of going to the basket, attacking the rim. And he had a couple of really nice attacks tonight. I mean, he loves doing that like swooping layup, which is beautiful to watch, really difficult to challenge, showcases, the athleticism that he obviously has. And, he had one of those and one on an and one in the second half, which was just really kind of, one of the probably many exclamation points in this game.
Tristan Thompson had his opportunity, by the way, Frank, and he didn't take it.
Yeah. So I'd say, the insult to injury tonight, or insult to insult, however you want to frame the metaphor, tonight was Grayson Allen being the Bucks' leading scorer, and really being the guy that twisted the knife in the first half, helping the Bucks go from 10, 12 point lead to, okay, they're now like up 20, right? I mean, it got back out of hand. But Bulls kind of made like a little run. I think they got to like 33-22, and then a few minutes later, it felt like it was a 20-point lead again, and it just felt like it was just fighting uphill all night for the Bulls. And again, just the kind of shots they were taking, and that there's calculus behind obviously the types of guys that the Bucks are letting shoot these threes. It was interesting that we saw Giannis defending Caruso early on, and Caruso hit one of those threes early on because Giannis was basically like, back down to the foul line and was basically begging him to shoot a straightaway three. He hit it. But for the most part, obviously the Bucks sort of said like, hey, Alex Caruso, Pat Williams, even Vooch to some extent, obviously. I mean, they're not, daring him to shoot threes, but with Brook on him, obviously Brook is going to sag off and help. He's the, the principal guy who's not going to try and be on the perimeter. But, I think the Bucks obviously throughout the course of the season series, other than the last game, and even the last game, 12 out of 25, it's not like you're automatically going to lose a game giving up 12 threes, even if it's a high percentage. I think the Bucks obviously have just sort of decided like, we're just going to take away the paint from you. We're going to take away the foul line from you. And if you guys hit some threes, we think we can still win. And I think at halftime, I want to say that I don't know if it was halftime or at some point in the third quarter, but there was some point in the game where the Bucks and Bulls had taken like the same number of threes, and the Bucks had hit like 2 or 3 more threes, but they were up like over 20 points. And again, people who listen to me all the time may recall that I like to point this out when, you look at this. I always like to look at the score line and the scoring differential, and then back out the advantage from 3-point range and see like, okay, what was my non 3-point advantage? And tonight, obviously a huge advantage for the Bucks. They did have an advantage from the 3-point line, but they also had a big advantage from 2. They obviously did more damage from the foul line, although they didn't get a ton of free throws, right? Only 4 or 5 from Giannis, right? It's not like Bucks didn't get a great whistle or anything like that tonight, but they just did a better job of avoiding fouls than the Bulls. And so, just a really comprehensive victory because, yeah, you shot better than them, but you out hustled them, you outplayed them, you out rebounded them. The Bulls made sloppy mistakes, right? We got used to a lot of sloppiness and bad passes and, just balls fumbled out of bounds from the Bucks in the first 2 games. Tonight, that got flipped at least a little bit. I don't think that was, the reason that the Bulls lost. 13 turnovers, not like a horrendous number. Bucks had 10 tonight. I'd say I really like the 10 from the Bucks, given the sloppiness we've seen from them. They looked just a lot cleaner. And I just felt like the Bulls just didn't have the same ball pressure intensity. They didn't make the Bucks as uncomfortable, I felt like, tonight as they have in the first couple games on the ball. They didn't compress sort of the middle of the court as much as they kind of otherwise did. And even though Giannis didn't, Giannis was shooting a lot of jump shots tonight. It's not like Giannis was feasting inside or anything like that, but Bucks just got a lot of good looks, a lot of open shots. Jrue Holiday got to the rim for 3 layups in the first quarter, which I felt really good about because obviously Jrue has had his struggles this series. Not that this was like some huge breakout game, but he looked a little bit more comfortable than he did the last 2 games. So again, just, it felt much more like the season series, those last 2 games where, again, it felt like kind of older brother just sort of, stiff arming the younger brother and just not letting him really get close to the ball, not really letting him, have a chance at this game.
There wasn't a lot of wasted possessions by the Bucks in this game, but there is a lot of wasted dollars by myself and other Locked On Bucks fans with some of their subscriptions they got, which is why True Bill is perfect for you. It's a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't want, need, or have simply forgot about. The forgot about part mostly applies to me. I sign up to things, you forget about it, you get the bill, you're just like, okay, this is not an ideal situation for me. It happened with me with NFL Game Pass, which, by the way, I can't even watch the US NFL Game Pass in Australia anyway, but I had it when I was in the US. And then next thing I'm getting charged hundreds of dollars for this thing, and I can't even watch it. It was impossible for me to get a refund. So if I had True Bill, I would have been one of the people that on average save up to $720 per year with True Bill. So companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. They're not reminding you about the money they're about to take from you. So that's why True Bill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and True Bill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Over 2 million people are using it, and that's approximately $100 million saved right there. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now. Truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year, which is perfect because then you're going to roll that money straight over to Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that has ever been made. And Victory Built Bar, I spoke about it before. Built Bar tastes good on any given Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. When you're just going about your business, but on a Saturday for me, or a Friday night for you, or a Saturday morning as you're listening to Locked On Bucks, watch the replay of Game 3 with a Built Bar. You can get any flavor you want. They're healthy for you as well. Mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate, cookies and cream. It's just delicious. And they're changing the flavors all the time. So you can find out at built.com what they got for you. Just use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's talk specifically about what they did with DeMar DeRozan. And we spoke about the fact that obviously they were trying to close down those areas, particularly around the free throw line, that sort of long mid-range where he likes to shoot. But it was pronounced from very early in this game that they're like, we are not letting you get in rhythm either straight on, which he really hurt the Bucks in game 2, or dribbling to the right side of the floor. And it makes sense. If you're a guy like DeMar DeRozan that wants to shoot this rhythm jump shot and you are a right-hander, it's more difficult if you're dribbling to your left to pull up and shoot that jump shot. We saw it. It was almost like, it's honestly almost the way they used to defend James Harden. Not as pronounced, but they were just like, you are not getting to the middle of the floor. You're not getting to the right side of the floor. And we saw the Bulls try some different things. They would try and run some double screens at the top of the lane to see if they could create some space for him. But every single time, Wes Matthews did a great job, but Jrue Holiday, some of these possessions that he had were just an absolute clinic. He would either fight over the screen, he would do a spin move and get around the guy's screening and go under and be right in his grill again. He was dipping, he was diving, he was ducking. It was like a perfect example of dodgeball, Frank. Jrue Holiday was superb in this game. And it's interesting because I was thinking about it. Even when he was going under some of those screens, if it was someone, I can't really think of the player, like say Jason Tatum or whatever, he might pull up for those threes. And that is the difference with DeMar DeRozan. You can really bank on the fact that he's not going to pull up for that three-point shot, which does make it a little bit easier to go under and recover. So I just thought it was a clinic tonight. For DeRozan to only attempt 9 shots, I mean, that's incredible. That is a perfect defensive performance from the Bucks. We'll see if they can continue it. But all the comfort that he had in game 2 was completely gone in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back and do, rewatch. I just want to rewatch his touches basically to just sort of see kind of what he was doing a little differently, because we know he doesn't need much space, right?
That's
I
right.
mean, so I think it did seem like they were trying to make him go left. I mean, some guys like going to their left. I don't know. I'm not an NBA player. I actually always liked going to my left.
There
For
you
me, it
go.
always felt a little more natural to do that. I mean, Giannis always, if he's pulling up, he always likes to have the ball dribbling with his left hand, pulling up, to his left. Although he's
Well, I
usually kind of
always
putting
thought
more
you
straight on.
remind. If I would pictured you in my head, I always thought you used to remind me of Giannis. So that makes sense that you and Giannis were in the
I
same
probably shoot
tendency.
more like Giannis, but
I take it back.
yeah. Well, and we should note there, if people didn't see, Giannis in practice hit like 15 straight threes the other day, right? Which just sort
That's
of
right.
underscores
Yes.
these guys. Most of these guys are just like, they practice so much, they hone their craft. It's hard to translate that into game action with live NBA defenses, but put them in an open gym, just shooting rhythm jumpers. Like even Giannis, a quote unquote bad 3-point shooter, can just rain threes, right? But yeah, I mean, I just thought it was just a matter of them just kind of really having the right balance of, how high Brook was playing. It's not like Brook Lopez is sitting at the top of the restricted area on these, right? I mean, that's maybe like obviously it's hard with Vooch because he is a threat to shoot the three. But you also, it's not like you want to hang way back on DeMar anyway, because if you let him get into like a short runner, like he's obviously great at that shot. So in some ways, you might as well have to play pretty high on those screens anyway, maybe a little higher than Brook might otherwise want to play, just to keep some pressure on Vooch. And obviously, the game, they got a little early lead, so they never really had to do a bunch of different stuff, right? It's not like they had to go to like we saw in the fourth quarter the other night, like blitzing DeMar to get the ball out of his hands. They didn't have to go to like switching to try to cut off Vooch from him getting good looks, because again, as much as he hit a couple, it never was at the point where it was really hurting you. Kane, if you had asked Mike Budenholzer tonight about giving up jump shots to Nick
Ooh.
Vucevic, I think he would have probably, what did he say to you when you asked him about that a couple of years back?
Well, the unfortunate thing is I used the word torching, which perhaps is a little aggressive in a press conference, and he just like stared at me for a while and then said, "I don't know if I'd use that terminology, Kane." And then I said, "Okay, fair enough." And then he basically moved on to the next question. So
yeah.
what are you
So
gonna do?
so yeah, I mean, I thought fortunately it they were able to kind of balance things pretty well. And I think again, with going with that really big lineup, I think it helps you against DeRozan, because again, a really big lineup against a team that wants to just shoot threes and play that way, I think hurts. I don't know that you can play that way, but against a Bulls team that isn't really, I think Levine a couple times tonight. I mean, Levine hit some threes. I think him in the high pick and roll, he's a guy I think you worry a bit more with Brook in pick and roll coverage, that he can get good looks at threes. It happened a couple times tonight, but again, not to the point that that it ever really bothered you. And yeah, I mean, it just felt like the Bulls just never got into much of a rhythm. And the obviously just the 3-point struggles that we've seen that from them in pretty much, I don't know, seemingly every game against the Bulls this year, other than game 2. So I mean, you can't rely on them shooting 25% from 3 every game, but to some extent, again, if you're going to take everything else away, if the Bulls hit 3-4 more threes tonight, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, they still would have lost by a ton. And it was interesting in the fourth quarter, in garbage time, the Bulls got a couple of offensive rebounds, and I actually looked at my phone. I was like, have they gotten an offensive rebound yet? Like it just felt like, for all the misses they had, like every miss, it just felt like the Bucks, with that size, they were cleaning everything up. Even with the 3-point misses, we saw it obviously the other night, just some long rebounds, hustle plays that the Bulls just, beating the Bucks to kind of those loose balls, 50-50 balls, really hurt the Bucks in the fourth quarter. And tonight, it just felt like everything was getting hauled down by the Bucks. And they end up with a 90% defensive rebound rate. Again, take that every day, right? I think we talked about that a couple times. I think that one or two games there at the end of the season where the Bucks had something like a 90% rebound rate, and tonight 30 paint points allowed. Just really hard to win an NBA game when again you don't hurt the other team at all around the basket, either by rebounding or by scoring. And when you're not hitting threes, it's just 81 points, right? 81 points tonight, yeah, 81 points in an NBA game in the year 2022. It's not a lot of points.
No, and it felt different to the game one scenario as well, where there was missed shots, but it looked like the Bulls at least threatened. In this game, they didn't threaten at all. When I think they were on, it took until about the 5-minute mark of the third quarter for them to cross 50 points, which is just absolutely unheard of in the modern game. You mentioned Bobby Portis and the eye injury. He had the goggles on tonight, which, by the way, just adds to a real badass look that he's got going on with the headband. He's got the undershirt. He's got the goggles. He's still out there looking crazy. Bobby Portis.
Wait. Are you saying undershirt is part of a badass look? I was gonna say, man, I don't know why does Bobby Portis need an undershirt, man? He's not like some wimpy guy, right? Like it's not like he's like skinny like John Henson. He's got to hide that thin upper torso. Come on, Bobby, flex on us a little bit. Like that's fine. I mean, heck, he earned like Kareem goggles tonight. I was texting with my friend Carly, one of my high school friends. She texted me. She was like, "Oh man, I was expecting to see Bobby wearing the Horace Grant glasses tonight," which we didn't quite see that. But I mean, the way he was playing early, it's like give him the Kareem goggles. You always worry about the adjustment when a guy has something on his face, either a mask if he's got a broken nose or glasses, and you could see. I mean, he had blood in his eye still from that shot the other night. So the fact that he came out burying threes was obviously just an awesome sight to see, and obviously was a big part about putting the Bulls on the back foot early.
I wonder if he's like LeBron and he was seeing 3 rims out there. But if you're Bobby Portis and you're a tough guy, I think you can pull off the undershirt. If I'm wearing an undershirt, I look like a little white nerd, so I can't pull that off. But Bobby Portis can. And the reason I was looking at him with such curiosity tonight, because I was wondering if those goggles that he was wearing were a pair of Shady Rays, which a fantastic sponsor of the podcast, by the way. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. So if you want to look like Bobby Portis, then you should check out Shady Rays. They've got polarized lenses, well-constructed, durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. So if you're playing basketball, you cop an elbow like Bobby Portis, but you got the goggles on and they break, Shady Rays will replace them with their lost and broken protection on every single pair. They'll send you a brand new pair for the next time you're out there on the court. So head to shadyrays.com. Use the code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for the best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses. And Shady Rays is backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. So the Bulls, and now that the Bucks have done this, it's time to consolidate with an afternoon game, which always makes me a little bit nervous when you're the Bucks. By the way, 3 a.m. Monday morning tip for me, which I gotta tell you, I'm not thrilled about, Frank. I will say that. But for the Bucks, they consolidate. If they can pick up this game, play the same level of defense, they head home 3-1 and in a good scenario. But the one thing that we haven't really discussed in depth is the Khris Middleton situation. And it was interesting. I think it was you that was mentioning this in the DM, in the group thread, that we've got with Eric and Mitchell, which makes perfect sense. Is that you're like, I wonder if this could be a 9-game series. Now, the theory is, and I think if you're a Bucks fan right now, you hope, and we'll see. Look, you don't want to give the Bulls hope again. They're going to be a pesky team. I expect they'll play much better in Game 4. There's no doubt about that. But you want the Bucks to clean up this series as soon as possible. But you want Brooklyn and Boston to be a 7-game absolute battle.
Bloodbath.
Exactly right. Exactly
Everybody
right.
bleeding from their eyes.
That's right. Every single player on the floor has goggles on by Game 7, by overtime at Game 7 in that series. And obviously, I mean,
everybody's in the Paul Pierce wheelchair.
That's right. The reason for that is because we want to give Khris Middleton as much time as possible. Now, he spoke pregame and he said, look, he's hopeful that in the 2-week period he'll be back playing. Who knows? That might be a little bit optimistic. We'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't expect the Bucks are going to be giving out a lot of information or a lot of feedback about this. But this has been a trend for the playoffs to start here, with a number of key players across the league being injured. Devin Booker, obviously, with the hamstring. I think Kyle Lowry hurt his hamstring tonight for Miami, and they might find themselves in a series now as well. There's a bunch of other guys that are hurt. So, look, this is always the most difficult part about the postseason. That's why a win like tonight is nice. You just largely bruise-free. Get through the game. You hope no one gets hurt because the series can tilt with one injury. But look, this is definitely a blow. And when after game 2, I was thinking to myself, goodness, I hope the Bucks are still alive when Khris Middleton is able to come back to the court.
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks at best, right? 2 weeks is absolute best case scenario. That is a huge blow to the Bucks championship aspirations. And again, we can say like, well, they should still win this first round series. And, I think at the end of the day, you still have Giannis, right? You still have, I think on paper, the better team. And now you're up 2-1 and you've reclaimed home court, right? I think after last game, again, I was saying, I had this feeling like, man, like the way the Bucks played these first 2 games, right? I mean, we kind of were expecting it in the first game, but the fact that they didn't kind of snap out of it and bring a, professional championship caliber team effort to game 2, and just didn't look like they had really learned anything from game 1. The offense was a lot better in game 2 for both teams. But that, to me, that was, way more worrying than, let me rank it. The most worrying thing about game 2, losing Khris Middleton. The second most worrying thing, the fact that you did that after you played really poorly in game 1, which should have been the wake-up call. And then 3, just the fact that you've lost the game, right? Which, again, I think both of us were like, I don't think both of us are the types to like predict series sweeps anyway. But certainly I think everybody had to be feeling like the Middleton injury definitely shifted the odds, right, in this series. It gives the Bulls a huge potential boost. It definitely removes the margin of error for the Bucks. And again, especially with Jrue Holiday and the way he had been looking in those first 2 games. And I don't think he completely shook that off tonight. He was definitely better, and defensively he's been great. But yeah, I think you absolutely had to be concerned after game 2, because it obviously shifts the odds in this series. And certainly now up 2-1, you obviously still have to like your odds of coming away from this series, regardless of how many games it takes. But man, the latest this series can end is May 1st. That's the same day as a potential game 7 for both Boston, Brooklyn, as well as Bucks Bulls. As you said, the ideal scenario is, the Bucks just mow them down the next 2 games, and then you can rest, and that other series goes 7 games, and then you get more time off. But, you just kind of do the math. Best case scenario, one or both of these series gets pushed to 7 games, and the Bucks come out of it. May 1st, that series ends, and then it's at least a couple days off, right? Say it's May 3rd, that you get game 1 of that next series. What was it? April 21st was April 20th was the Wednesday game. So at that point, you're pretty much like 13 days from the original injury. So you're not even 2 weeks at game 1. So you're definitely missing the start of the second round at that point. And again, with the way this is, like, it's reevaluated in 2 weeks. It's not go play a basketball game in 2 weeks. Yeah. And so, I think you'd have to say, like, best case scenario, he misses the first 2 games of the next series. And that just really adds, again, it's one thing to add difficulty against the Bulls. No disrespect to the Bulls, but I think everyone would say, including Bulls fans, that the Celtics and Nets are scarier teams than the Bulls. And so, the specter of having to start that series without Khris Middleton is what I think, from a title perspective, is what's really scary, and why absolutely the Bucks title chances have taken a substantive ding. And again, you can kind of put it out of sight, out of mind, because right now you just got to win this series, and you still have reason for optimism that you can and will win this series. But it's a huge deal. And even when he does come back, right, is he going to be slowed? How is coming back from that knee injury going to impact what we see from Khris Middleton on the court? It's a huge deal. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I think people sometimes like get a little carried away, feeling like, okay, the Bucks should be the favorites in the East. And it's like, well, yeah, but they can be the favorites in the East, and that doesn't mean that they're like a 70% likely to come out of the East, right? Especially this year, I think whoever the East favorite is, it's a plurality, not a majority type situation, right? Like maybe the best team in the East has a 30, 35% chance, 40% maybe chance of coming out of the East, but it's still hard. You still have to stay healthy. You still have to beat 3 teams to come out of the East, and those teams, especially those last 2 rounds, are going to be good, right? So it's just really hard, and then you got to go beat whoever comes out of the West, which should also be a great team. And we know the Bucks can do it because we saw them do it. But to me, I just think you have to be realistic about what are the odds. I think even the best teams in the East, they have a 20% chance of winning an NBA championship, maybe something on that order. And so, again, there is nothing that you can take for granted. There's nothing definitive, even if you're healthy, because the playoffs, as we've seen, they are a battle of attrition. Weird stuff happens. Series of small sample sizes, trademark Frank Madden, what I always say. So on the one hand, you can't worry about the second round right now, but yeah, if you want to zoom out and think about the Bucks' odds of having another parade and planning your travel for the conference finals. I mean, you have to have a little bit more pause about that for sure. Now that we're obviously sitting here waiting to see when Khris comes back.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to brief chat about Khris Middleton, not to put a wet blanket all over the Bucks championship hopes here, Frank. But look, it's nice to keep it realistic. But what we're going to do?
Here's my wet blanket.
But what we're going to do is we're going to bring the mood right back up quickly about Luca Vildoza, who came on. And the one thing that I like about Mike Breen, and this is why he's a pro, this is why he's one of the absolute best in the business, is because no matter what scenario is coming up in the game, he is prepared. He had a prepared spiel about Luca Vildoza when he came on. And the point that they made was exactly right. First NBA game in a playoff game is so cool. And he made his first basket. He hit a 3. But what he did do is dish up some sensational passes for assists. He had the one hand, which was, I think, a bad sort of flip pass from Thanasis. Vildoza, one hand, like midair, bounce past the Wara for the dunk. And then the other one in transition. The Bucks social media put up the dunk for Thanasis, and I don't want to take away from Thanasis. It was a fine dunk, but we've seen it before. But what's set up, and the highlight of the play was the behind the back dish at speed in transition. This man is showtime. I was pumped for him. Honestly, I was obviously in a good mood. The Bucks were playing well, but to see him come out and get his first minutes and have some serious highlights, it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was bummed that we didn't get to see him in the last couple of regular season games, right? Because he does have this reputation. I mean, I've never seen him play live before, but I've read the scouting reports. You watch some highlights, right? You know that he brings some flair, and certainly to kind of watch him go out there and in a low pressure environment be able to throw a couple of exclamation point passes, obviously just sort of added to the night. And it's sort of funny because there have been, let's just say, especially last year, where the Bucks were really thin in the backcourt. Garbage time Bucks were not always very fun. It was like, Pat Connaughton or Thanasis is playing point guard or something like that, and it's just like, it's just hard. It's hard for these guys to do anything. So you throw a guy like Luca Vildoza out there, who's got that floor general, dishing, making other guys better type thing. Definitely amps up the enjoyability factor for garbage time. So, hopefully we will see a lot more Luca Vildoza garbage time, Thanasis dunking, bench going wild type moments in this series, because it means that the Bucks are doing very well. But yeah, that was definitely a fun footnote on obviously a historic ass kicking in Chicago. I think this was we saw here. This was the biggest Bulls home loss in playoff history.
They're getting booed in the
Yeah,
first playoff
yeah.
game in 1,200 days or whatever it is, and they're getting booed.
Well, that was a funny. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Like I feel like I would think that Chicago could be a great atmosphere for a playoff game. They're obviously really hungry to be back in this position, right? The fans are obviously, have been waiting for this type of opportunity. But that's why I mean, obviously you have to give the Bucks a ton of credit because they kind of took the fans out of it from the opening tip. And I said it about the regular season games, like other than the third quarter run in the first Chicago home game that we saw this year when the Bulls went on a really nice run and took a lead. It's been hard to kind of really like see the crowd really playing much of a role in these games. And tonight, obviously, the Bucks just kind of stomping the Bulls from the outset. Grayson Allen, just going off, which was so welcome given that he was a total zero in the first two games. Obviously, again, he's a guy who is no stranger to hostile environments. Whenever you're the like best white guy on a Duke team, like you have to be ready to play in opposing gyms that are going to be not fans of you. And with him and the Chicago crowd, obviously in the history with Caruso, obviously that was doubly so. But and he had the block on Patrick Williams, who was horrendous tonight, 0 for 9. It's kind of crazy to see that. I mean, he's a really nice defensive tools, but man, like sometimes you just watch him offensively, like the way he shoots jump shots is like, this guy was like, the 4th overall pick in a draft. Like, it's just kind of wild. Like, he just looks so uncomfortable for the most part offensively from what I've seen. And I know his numbers suggest he's better. He's shot the three much better over the course of his career than certainly we've seen in this series, but he doesn't look like a guy who shoots a good percentage. Let's just say he's not taking high degree of difficulty 3-pointers, or at least if he's making them. But yeah, Grayson Allen, obviously, you couldn't have written a better script for him tonight. Maybe he didn't have a dunk on Tristan Thompson, but he'll settle for that scoop shot. And the fact that obviously set the table for the Luca Vildoza debut was fun. And we'll see. I'm giving it. Well, I don't know. I haven't checked Twitter in a while, but I'm sure there are people already saying like, oh man, can we get Luca Vildoza out on the floor with Giannis running pick and rolls? Like, oh man, Giannis is going to get so many alley-oops if we can just get Luca Vildoza out there. It's like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. But
next season.
Yeah. But hey, Mike Breen, Luca Vildoza was on the Knicks before they released him in the preseason last year, right? Because of an injury. So that's probably why Breen had some familiarity with him, because Breen obviously is the Knicks commentator, and so he probably at least had some familiarity with Luca, certainly more than I did. But yeah, that was a fun introduction for him, and we finally got our Luca Vildoza debut, and it certainly lived up to expectations, and hopefully we'll see more of it. By the way, the Thanasis dunk, was it? I think it was Pat Williams just fouled the shit out of him. Like, it was one of those, like grabs his forearm practically
strong finish.
Fouls.
I didn't want to actually detract. I mean, it was a very cool dunk.
Yeah, I mean,
Vildoza his props.
Once again, Kane Pittman, just total Thanasis disrespect over here.
I love Thanasis.
The Greek fans are just going to be just
all
Thanasis over you in the in the comments. But yeah, that was a fun exclamation point. By the way, I feel like Jordan Warren's shot now like gets like 4 inches above the rim when he shoots jump shots. Like, he was shooting the flattest shot in the history of the earth tonight in garbage time, and I don't care one bit. It's fine. We don't have to worry. And by the way, shout out Javon Carter, part of that 8-man rotation, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he even hit a shot tonight. I don't even know if he took a shot tonight, but again, really impressed with his defense. He was guarding Zach LaVine at times, which again, you worry about how Javon's going to be able to guard up against taller players. I thought he hung with Zach LaVine. I thought he hung, again, with whoever the Bulls had out there that he had to guard on the perimeter. And again, just kind of 1 through 8 with the regular rotation guys that played tonight. Pretty much everybody played their role. Carter and Wes Matthews defended really well, didn't really take any shots, and pretty much everybody else contributed as a scorer. Pat Connaughton saw a couple shots go down too, which was nice. And Kane, we have to point out, Pat got one of his patented drive right, flip the ball way up off the backboard with his right hand as he like falls to the baseline on the right side. He got that to go down. So he's got that shot back. So that was good to see. We want to see Pat Connaughton and his bionic hand heating up again here after a pretty anonymous first couple of games. So yeah, good to see the Bucks kind of get right a little bit. And so often when these blowouts, your best player actually doesn't end up having a huge game, and they really didn't need Giannis to really try to dominate or really try to look for a shot. A lot of times, obviously, he has to do that in second halves when the pressure's on and they really need him to go after it. And you could just tell tonight, I think he had 8 points in the third quarter. Didn't have to do anything in the fourth quarter. Got to the bench early, 29 minutes. Normally I'm all about Giannis stats, but in the playoffs, hey, if you can bank a 30-point win and get Giannis, 20 minutes of rest on the bench, that is absolutely a happy place for me. And so I think we're going to need to see peak Giannis, attacking Giannis, downhill Giannis, more throughout the rest of this series to close the Bulls out. But a very confident performance from this Bucks team tonight. Great to see Giannis not pressing, confident teammates and his teammates coming through and showing why, this is a championship team, not just an MVP guy surrounded by a bunch of dudes, which a couple times in game two, it felt like it was Giannis and a bunch of dudes, let's be honest. Tonight, it felt like really like a team effort, and obviously we saw it on the scoreboard.
Javon Carter, 18 minutes, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, had a steal, didn't attempt a shot. So, yeah, I mean, I thought he was, even though obviously the box score looks modest, I thought he had an impact on the game. We've gone way over time, so let's wrap it up. It's to me, it's the absolute perfect weather in Melbourne right now. 64 degrees, sunshine, and I've got 2 hours before I have to get to work. So I have to edit this podcast and get the hell outside for about an hour before I have to go to work. So that's it. This is all over. We'll be back post game for game 4. Like I said, I don't know. We'll have to work out timing, Frank. I don't know if you want a podcast at 5:30 a.m. My time on Monday morning, but we will figure it out. There will be a post game pod. If you're new to the show,
I'm going to be visiting my in-laws at the time, so we'll have to figure that out. It may have to be a later evening pod for you. So I will not be. It won't be breakfast with Frank podcast on Sunday for you, or Monday for you, Kane. Right. So, hopefully we'll have something to celebrate Sunday night. We'll see.
All right. Well, we'll have a podcast at some point, a post-game podcast. Yes. So we'll leave it there. For myself, for Frank, have a great weekend and enjoy the game on Sunday.